Tonight's webinar will run for about an hour. It's being recorded and will be available on our website shortly. My name is Zoe Nikakis and I'm part of First Super's marketing team. Let's start with our acknowledgement of country. Let me begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and paying my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I also extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples attending this event. Let's talk about how you're going to submit questions tonight. Thanks for joining us. We're all excited to be here. We encourage you to ask questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Questions are anonymous and we will do our very best to answer them all. Before handing over to our financial planning team, there are a couple of important housekeeping items I need to cover. Just before I introduce the team, a bit about us at First Super. We're an industry super fund with about 47,000 members. We have $3.6 billion in funds under management, strong industry links, and a dedicated member services team. We provide local, personalised service, and you can take us with you for life, from accumulation to transition to retirement and onto an account-based pension. We're also launching our First Super app later in the year, so stay tuned for that. Onto the disclaimer. The content in this presentation has been prepared by First Super and may not be used or reproduced without prior written consent. The information in this presentation is accurate as of today's date. First Super has engaged industry fund services to provide financial advice to our members. All our financial planners are authorised representatives of IFS. Further information regarding the cost of advice is set out in our financial services guide. This is our general advice warning. The information in this presentation tonight explains concepts, strategies, and ideas in a general way. If you feel it could be applicable to your personal situation, we recommend you obtain financial advice before taking any action. Now, let's meet the team. Joining us tonight is Andrew Jewell, our Executive Manager, Financial Advice and Education. And our financial planners, Jason Bruce and Daniela Baltianu. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Andrew.
Thank you very much, Zoe. And welcome everyone that's joined us here tonight. For a lot of our members that are thinking about retiring in the next 12 months, a couple of key questions certainly come to their mind. And that is, what do I do with my super? Do I have enough to retire on? How long is it going to last? And will I be able to get the age pension? They tend to be four key questions that are often asked in that respect. So what we're going to do tonight is actually answer potentially a lot of those questions. We'll give you some idea about how you can determine the answers to some of those questions. And that is about, what kind of level of income is it that you may be seeking, depending on what you want to do in your retirement years, and the eligibility rules around the age pension, and how is it assessed? Also, how does super and the age pension work together? And what can you do, or what should you consider over the next 12 months if you want to boost your super before you actually do retire? And what can you do with your super after you do actually retire as well? So before we get into it a little bit further, what I probably want to do is to set the scene a little bit and just share with you an example of some advice that I gave to a member about a year or so ago now. He was a cabinet maker and his partner, his wife, worked in the aged care services, and they lived up in Sydney and lived a relatively simple life. They like to go for walks on the weekends along the coastline and certainly catch up with friends in the local RSL club and just have a cheeky wine or a beer with them just for an hour or two in the afternoons. He was earning around about $50,000 per annum, and so was his wife, and they were actually renting the apartment up there in Sydney. But it's got to the stage in both their lives where, in particular, the husband had decided that it was time to retire. He liked his employer, he enjoyed his work, but each morning it was getting harder and harder to kind of motivate himself to go into work. So with Mr. Black, we call him Mr. Black, decided to retire, so did Mrs. Black as well. So this is going to be the start of their new chapter. And of course, there's a lot of questions that were coming to their minds about what is it that they should do and everything of that nature. But what they had decided on was many years ago, they actually brought an investment property down in Melbourne, and consequently, that's where they were going to move to. And the real driving factor behind that was their son had moved down there. He's got a young family and they wanted to be closer to their son and his family. But like I said before, they had no idea what to do next. That's the only decision they made. They didn't even know what to do with their super, whether they had enough, and they really hadn't thought about, well, how is it that we're going to actually manage to drive an income and support that type of income. And really, that's what we're going to start taking you through now, is some of those considerations. And where we're going to start with is something called the ASPA Retirement Standard. And ASPA stands for the Australian Super Fund Association. And they do a lot of research. And they go out each quarter and they research all the retirees and they say, where are you spending your money? And based on that information, they've come up with two models. One is called a modest lifestyle and one is called a comfortable lifestyle. So Daniela, can you just explain to us, what do we mean, or what does ASPA mean by a modest lifestyle?
Sure, Andy. Well, overall modest or comfortable lifestyle means different things to different people. So that's why we relate back to this ASPA retirement standard, as it helps us as financial planners to start painting a picture to our members on how their retirement might look like or what their preferences could be going forward. So when we talk about a modest lifestyle, it resonates more with those people who are more house or family orientated. They might do some, tinkering around the house, but no big or expensive renovation are usually planned. They enjoy spending time gardening or working in the shed. They might be, a little bit into golfing or fishing. So spending time with their family is very important to them, and potentially some babysitting of their grandkids might also be involved in their future. These people are usually more budget conscious. They are happy with the low-cost internet option or the basic level of health insurance. They might enjoy, just as your clients you mentioned before, they might enjoy an occasional social event, but it's not something that they do on a regular basis. They might go on a short trip or holiday, but it's usually somewhere local and very rarely overseas, if at all. There are usually no allowances or budgets to update the car or buy a boat or caravan, as they might be happy with whatever they've already got. So overall, it's a decent lifestyle without all the bells and whistles or a lot of luxuries.
All right, thank you very much. Great explanation. And then Jason, on the other end of the scale, this comfortable lifestyle. Can you explain to us, what does ASPA mean by that?
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, the comfortable lifestyle is just the heading. So like Daniela says, comfortable is different for everyone. So normally when I speak to members around this, I refer to it as more as an active lifestyle. So you're going to be very, very active. You see the lovely couple there going on what looks like a cruise. So a lot of the time when people look to pin themselves under this ASPA comfortable lifestyle, travel is pretty important to them. So you're going to have a lot of domestic or intrastate trips, but also going overseas every now and then as well. That might be a couple of larger trips around the world, to Europe, Americas, wherever it might be as well. But you're also sort of busier on your day-to-day events. You might not spend a lot of time at home. You're out for dinner, social events, leisure activities. For some people, that's going to the footy and becoming a member of the footy team or a golf membership. So active in your travel, active in your social calendar as well. But it does also give you some scope to do some things around home that are a little bit more. So updating the home, not worrying about the heating and the cooling when you are home as well. Having some good internet, Foxtel, whatever it might be. So active out of the home, but a little bit more comfortable and a little bit less budget conscious within the home as well.
All right, thank you very much. What we're going to do now is just take a quick poll from those that are attending, just to find out from those descriptions, what type of retirement lifestyle is it that you potentially are looking for? Is it that modest one or is it that comfortable one? So we're just going to give you a few moments. Okay, the results are starting to come through. All right, so majority of people that are attending here tonight is actually looking for that comfortable lifestyle in respect to that. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. So, I mean, that's great. What we described about, okay, this is the type of things that I'm looking for. And the majority of the people here tonight are looking for that comfortable lifestyle. So the next question, obvious question that comes along is, well, how much do I need? So let's start to have a look at what type of income it is that people may need for those different lifestyles. So Daniela, if I can go back to you and the modest lifestyle, can you just explain to us what we're seeing here for a single and a couple and how it compares to the age pension?
Sure. Well, relating back to a modest lifestyle and taking into account some assumptions around, not having any debt or having to pay rent, ESPA came up with an amount that they consider is an average to maintain that modest lifestyle. So the column in the middle, the lighter green one, that's that modest lifestyle kind of income that they think it's sufficient. As you can see in the table, a single person will need just over $1,200 a fortnight, or just over $31,000 a year. And a couple will be looking at just over $1,700 a fortnight, or just over $45,000 a year. Now, the darker green column is the age pension income. So if we assume that a couple receives that full age pension, all of a sudden, to enjoy a modest lifestyle, a couple might only need an additional $4,000 per year to bring them up to that budget of the $45,000. So for someone looking at a modest lifestyle, the expectation is that the majority of their income will be that age pension payments, and only a small top-up would be required from their retirement savings.
So this you just highlighted at the end there. I mean, for people that are looking for a modest lifestyle, is that they're potentially deriving a lot of their income from the age pension, as you mentioned. So just topping that up by $1,000 per fortnight, or about $4,000 per year, as an example. Sorry, about $100 per fortnight, or $1,000 per year in that regards. But how much super is it that they may need to kind of derive that extra income on top of the age pension?
You'd be surprised, somewhere between $70,000 to $100,000 could potentially be enough for a couple, just because we obviously take into consideration their investment returns that would keep that superannuation floating and allow them to receive that extra money that they need to top it up to the required budget.
Right. So, I mean, again, that really highlights, you don't need a lot of super in which to do this, because potentially those that are looking at that modest lifestyle may not have accrued that much financial finances behind them, wealth behind them in that regards. And, the age pension is going to pay such a key part in their income, and they just need to top it up just that little bit more just to enjoy the lifestyle they want. I mean, as an example, my mum's on the age pension, and myself and my three brothers throw in money every year to give her that kind of modest lifestyle. That's the reality of it. The age pension, as everyone's probably quite accustomed to and heard from many others, isn't enough really to make sure you have a dignified retirement, is what we like to describe. So as you're saying there, just topping up that age pension with about $70,000 or $100,000 in funds, mainly through your superannuation, can give you that better lifestyle to enjoy and everything of that nature. So thank you very much. So then, Jason, on the other end, I mean, if we're looking at comfortable, they're starting to look like big numbers. So yeah, what's the story behind it?
Yeah, so it is almost double the age pension. So I mean, look, if you're wanting to travel, you're wanting to go overseas, we know what the cost of these sort of things are today. It is very expensive. So the age pension is just giving you your most basic sort of cost of living. So we're almost looking at doubling that for the comfortable income in retirement. Almost $2,000 a fortnight for a single person, and creeping up towards $3,000 now for a couple. So if you want that, and your age pension's only going to provide a small portion of the income that you need, you really need to build up a higher level of capital or super balance to get that lifestyle for a number of reasons. Obviously, the reliance on your super is going to be pretty big. And also, as we'll touch on, you may not get the full age pension if you've built up those assets as well. So really need to work hard and grind away at getting that super account up if you want the comfortable lifestyle.
And, how much are we potentially looking at if we want this type of lifestyle? How much do we need in super?
Yeah, so once again, a few assumptions that are made in there, but for a single person, close to 600,000 to 595,000. For a couple, it is 690,000. So it is just that little bit extra for the couple. But you can see there it's quite a lot more than what Daniela sort of mentioned with the modest lifestyle.
Yeah, and so the thing to remember about these incomes for this type of lifestyle, it's research done by ASPO and it's averages around there. So really what they're doing is giving you like bookends, if you want to describe it that way. They're basically saying if you want to enjoy your retirement years, you need to be looking for an income that's between approximately $1,700 a fortnight up to $2,700 a fortnight. It depends on what you want to do. And going back to your earlier statements that you mentioned, Jason, it's about how active you want to be in those years and what is it that you want to do in those final years as well, the travel overseas and everything of that nature. But both the scenarios are kind of highlighting that the age pension, and we're just going to step into that in a moment, plays a role in it. But again, to highlight to some of our members, and especially when we're talking to our members in the regional areas, a lot of them are kind of like saying, I just need an income around about 50 to 55,000. The key thing around what income is it that you want in your retirement years starts with a budget. And that's one of the things that we're going to ask you to do. If you ever approach the financial planning team and you were planning about your retirement, one of the things we're going to sit down with you and go, well, let's talk about a budget. Where are you spending your money now? So the main point coming back to ASPA and these income is their bookmarks, their indicators. They're a starting point to think about how much income people may need. We do have a question from a member, and I will get to that in a moment. So let's just carry on. So we mentioned before about the age pension and what role is the age pension going to be? If I'm looking for this type of income, how do I know if I'm going to get the age pension in that respect? So Danielle, if I come back to you in about couples, and we actually did get a question from a member that says, look, I don't have much super and my wife is actually still working. I'm of age pension age, and I'm just wondering about, how much age pension, or will I be eligible for the age pension? So maybe you could just explain this side about the income and the asset test and what do they mean?
Yeah, sure. Before I go into the question, I'll probably just explain a little bit about the difference in these two tests as shown on the slide. So when it comes to age pension, Centrelink will assess you on two separate tests. Now there is the asset test, and this is about things that you own that can be converted into cash. So that's your superannuation, cash savings in the bank, investment property, shares, managed funds, to name a few. Now, that's what we call financial assets. Then you have your non-financial assets, which include things like your house contents, cars, caravans, boats, or holiday house if you're lucky to have it. Now, just to note that we count these non-financial assets at fire sale value. So you might have your house insured for, or the house contents insured at, $100,000, but if you need to sell it tomorrow at a garage sale, you might only get a total of $10,000 for it. The house that you actually live in is excluded from the test. So as well as any superannuation that is sitting in the name of a partner who hasn't reached that age pension age, so the younger partner. So going back to the question that the member had, if the partner is younger, the one that is working and is not of an age pension age, her superannuation is not going to be considered as an asset in this particular example. Then there is the income test, which my assumption, and it will influence this particular example's eligibility for age pension. So the income test relates to any income you or your partner earns because they look at you as a couple. As well as there might be other income sources, such as you might have an investment property and you might earn some rent from it. There is also a thing called deeming. Now, this is something that the government applies to all of your financial assets to estimate roughly the rate of income that these assets could potentially earn. The rate currently is 2.25%. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it. It might get a bit confusing, but that's some additional income that they assess and add to your other potential earnings. Now, income test-wise, On top of the thresholds amount specified in the slide, the government now allows you to earn an extra $300 a fortnight. That's for the person that already reached that age pension age, without impacting the age pension amount. This is called work bonus, and you could actually bank the amount up to a year worth, so up to $7,600. So somebody might be doing some seasonal work, utilize the work bonus on top of that lower threshold, which at the moment is sitting at $8,736 for a couple, and still be entitled for a full age pension. So that allows a bit of a combination working, but also getting that age pension coming through. Out of the two tests, Centrelink will use the test that provides the lower payment. So again, going back to the question, if under asset test, the couple satisfies the rules, they will then go and assess the couple under income test. Because the wife earns an income, and I would like to know, of course, details around her income, how much it is. If it's under $8,736, they will be entitled to a full age pension. If it's above $92,144, the member will not be receiving any age pension. If it's something in between, it will be calculated at a sliding scale. So the particular example or the couple, they might be entitled to a part age pension, what we call. Now, something worth mentioning is that the asset test thresholds, they are a bit different for couples who are non-homeowners. So again, I would need to find out that from the member. So do they own a house or not? Because the assets thresholds are different for those people as well. The explanation behind it is there is a bigger allowance for non-homeowners, as the expectation is they might have rent to pay, so overall they need more assets to kind of survive.
Okay, all right. So great explanation around the age pension, starting with the asset test. That's what Centrelink applies first, and if you pass that, then they apply the income test, and it's the lower of the two tests that entitles you to the age pension. So, I mean, again, you just recently gave some advice to some of our members that were just retiring. They were of pension age. Maybe you can just run through that example with us, how you assisted the member there.
Yes, definitely. So just a few months ago, I met with a couple, both age 67, with the husband recently retired from workforce. Now the wife, she stopped working 7 years ago at age 60. Their joint super balance is of $230 between the two of them. Except their home, 2 cars, and the house contents, they didn't really have any other savings. As they have been living off one income, so while the husband was working in the last 7 years, they had an understanding of a budget that they wanted to survive off going forward. But because the husband is now not working, they are worried and they were not sure if they have sufficient funds behind them to allow them to have that lifestyle in retirement. So again, we talked about what the retirement looks like for them. Both mentioned that they wanted to continue helping their kids with their families. So babysitting was a big pastime for them. They do catch up with their friends at the local RSL ever so often. The husband enjoys golf and doing some small bits and pieces around the house just to keep him occupied and out of his wife's way. They've done their overseas trip, so they were not planning for anything big going forward. So their requested budget was of $48,000 going forward, which is the amount that the husband was earning after tax while he was working in the last few years. Now, based on both the asset and the income test, the couple were eligible for a full age pension. So the big bulk of their cash flow will be coming from that age pension, which based on the previous slides, for a couple, you're looking at just over $41,500. So again, the difference between the budget of $48,000, the pension of $41,500, we really only needed $6,500 to top it up to the level of income that they wanted. Now, an interesting thing, based on their date of birth, both of them could have applied and received a Part H pension for the last 7 months, as the husband's income was reasonably low, so he was potentially eligible for a Part H pension. However, unfortunately, the couple was under the impression that they had to be fully retired before applying for the H pension. Overall, though, they were happy to see that their superannuation will last them their life expectancy while still enjoying the lifestyle that they desire in retirement.
Great example, great example. So thank you very much. Jason, just, not all of our members still have a partner, some of them are single. Without going back through all the asset and the income test, can you just give us a highlight about how it differ for a single person?
Yeah, so it really is the same in terms of the actual process, what's counted as an asset, how they count the income as well. So they don't have different rules really around it. The only difference is that the rates and thresholds are much less. The idea is that a couple with 2 people working has the potential to build up their income and assets more. So hence the thresholds are a little bit higher. So it effectively just works the same way, and everything that Daniela spoke about is the same, just that the thresholds are much less for the full payment.
Okay, thank you very much. And maybe you can give us a kind of like a case study of a member that you worked that was single, and the advice that you provided to them.
Yeah, so Daniela mentioned the work bonus, and this really revolves around the income test for this member. So his assets, his super and that sort of thing, he was a homeowner. So his assets were a little bit under the minimum threshold. So under the asset test, he was entitled to the full age pension. But he did want to continue working. He sort of enjoyed the social aspect of working and keeping himself busy and out of trouble, I think was the main thing, as he said. So he did want to work, but he'd felt he'd paid a lot of taxes over the last 30 or 40 years of work. And so he wanted to get the full age pension. Or most of it at least, but working full time meant that he would not get much, if any, age pension. So he thought that wasn't worthwhile. So what we spoke about and spoke to him about the income test, the limits there, and what was really important was that work bonus. So the first $300 a fortnight, not counting. So he quit his full-time job and he actually picked up some work where he was bus driving. So he was just casually bus driving for schools. So just doing, through the term, so not working the full year. And that work bonus does bank up. So he built up this bank while he wasn't working. And then he was able to effectively receive almost the full age pension with that work bonus, get a few $100 a fortnight as well from his bus driving. And he didn't even have to touch his super. So that was giving him enough money to live off. So he was happy doing his little bus driving and getting what he could from the government, which was the most important thing for him.
Thank you very much. That's a great example. So what we've done so far is kind of like ask people to think about what kind of lifestyle it is that they want to enjoy when they do retire. Consequently, give them an indication about potentially what kind of income or the range that they may be thinking about for income purposes. And consequently, is the age pension going to be part of that income or not? What we're going to do now is move on to superannuation and how does that work in conjunction with the age pension or being the only source of income, maybe potentially for a while. But just before we do, there's a question that has come up from a member. They're looking at retiring in the next 3 months. They're in our default investment option and they're thinking about switching into more of an aggressive, more of an assertive type of investment option because it seems to be performing better. They're just wondering whether they should still do that while they're working, whether they should make that switch before they retire over the next 3 months. So maybe Daniela, immediately I'll throw to you in response to that question, because it does come up. Members do ask about how should I invest my super moving forward.
Yeah, they do. And it really goes back to their goals and what they want to do, also to their how comfortable they are with the risk, because obviously the more aggressive you are invested, the higher the risks of something happening to the share market or to their balance overall. When I mentioned the goals, we really need to know how long they're happy to leave those funds invested in that particular more aggressive investment option. So we would probably need to have a proper discussion, need to do a risk profile questionnaire just to identify the level of comfort that they would be, and to identify, again, the length of their investment time frame. So it's not an easy yes or no kind of answer.
And then I think the other key point to that as well is that even when you retire, your superannuation is invested for the long term. It's now invested for the next 20 years. So coming back to the very first point that you made, it's about the person's risk tolerance and what they're expecting in terms of returns. And there's a process that we will take them through to determine that. But admittedly, most of our members that are retiring take a more defensive approach in their investment options. Why? They don't want to take so much risk with their super, because that's all they've got now, and they're trying to derive an income from it. So they're not looking for that more aggressive investment option. But very much to your point, yeah, everyone's very different. Everyone's got different attitudes. But when we sit down with a member, we actually go through that investment discussion with them and determine maybe what's the best approach for them moving forwards. All right, so let's come back a little bit to what we're talking about here tonight. So like I said, we've just looked at the age pension. And Jason, I'm going to move over to you. So if someone's entitled to the age pension, and Daniela and both of you have mentioned before about how do I use my super, or what do I do with my super if I want to add to that age pension, or if I'm not eligible for the age pension, my super is the only source of income I'm going to have.
Yeah, sure thing. So obviously over the years while you're still working, you've got your super account, which is here on the left. And that's been growing. You've been receiving your contributions and you've been filling up your super bucket or building up your nest egg. But now it's time to start to live off the fruits of that labour. And generally people will move into what's called an account-based pension. So we're no longer receiving income from work. We may or not be receiving income from Centrelink, but we need to top that off and get some additional income. So the account-based pension provides you with a regular source of income from your super. And you can see there, we're just starting to open that nest egg or open that tap, start to pay it directly into your bank account. So if you're obviously using it and you're not getting any age pension as yet, you're obviously going to have to draw a higher amount from that to meet whatever lifestyle you need. Or if you're receiving the age pension, it's just potentially a little bit of a top up. But one of the most important things and the best things that we like about the account-based pension, if you're over age 60, which most people will be before they can even access their super, it's 100% tax-free. So the income that you draw from that is 100% tax-free. To the question that Daniela just sort of mentioned, and what a lot of people will ask us, is how is it invested? Is it invested the same as my super? Can it still earn me interest or a return? And the answer to that is yes, it still does generate a return. The investment options, obviously you do have choice, but they do mirror the super account. So you can still grow your super account while you're still working and taking those regular, fortnightly or monthly payments. One of the great things about it is you can take as much as you want. You can also take lump sum. So what a lot of people will do is they'll meet their living costs and needs, but then want to go on a holiday. So they might call First Super and say, I'd like $10,000 or $5,000 to fund this holiday, which is it's good and it's easy, it's flexible, it's convenient, and you can change those payments as well. One of the last things to note there was a question that popped up and very topical here that they thought you had to draw down your super at a minimum rate of 5%. So when you move into this account-based pension, there is what's called a minimum payment that you have to take, and the government sets that minimum payment. And it is based on your age. So if you are between 65 and 75, it is 5% of your balance. So if you've got 100 grand in this pension account at the start of the year, you've got to take at least 5 grand or 5% of that over the course of the year. So that does change slightly depending on your age, but it's probably the only restriction that you do have to take that minimum set payment, but it's a good problem to have.
And admittedly, if you do want to draw down a regular amount, or you do want to draw down that minimum, what is the option? Do you have to go into the account-based pension?
No, so like that gentleman that I spoke about that had retired and he was drawing enough, he just left his account in super. So he didn't roll over to a pension because he didn't want to draw that minimum. But it could be that someone does, move into a pension, get a little bit bored, and go back to work. They can actually transfer it back to their super account at any stage, so long as they've met that minimum payment. So it's not something that you're locked into in terms of having to keep it in the pension or even keep those payments. So, you can change that as your lifestyle changes or as you get the age pension. Those regular payments are variable.
All right. And then just that explanation you gave there at the end has kind of answered another question that we got within the seminar, and that is, if my circumstances change, how flexible or how easy is it to revise the pension account? And to your point, you can either reduce the drawings that you make or roll it back into the super account, and that stops the drawings from it all. So thank you very much. So moving on. So one of the things that a lot of our members do ask is that, okay, I'm thinking about retiring. This is the amount of income I'm thinking about I need in my retirement years, and this is the age I want to retire at. So there's something that we call a retirement health check. And what it is it's a projection taking into account where your super is invested at this moment in time, what investment option, the contributions you're making into that, and what the balance is. And then consequently, we factor in the retirement age, and then how much you want to draw down, and if there's any other significant expenses that you want to incur during your retirement years, like upgrading a car or going on that big trip of yours and so forth. And what this projection does then is it kind of gives an indication about how much of your super you're going to need to draw down and how's it going to work in conjunction with the age pension from that perspective. And what we find is a lot of our members, that gives them the peace of mind, as in what I'm thinking about as an income is achievable. When I'm thinking about retiring, appears to be the right age for me to do this. And if there is a shortfall in regards to it, it may mean to them that they've got to think about maybe if they can, put some more money into their super so they can enjoy their retirement years more, or if in the worst case scenario, maybe delay that investment, that retirement age. So the best way to kind of explain this, let's go through an example. We've got a case study here of Barry, who has worked full-time for 40 years. Debbie's working part-time in the retail industry, and she's been there for the last 7 years. They've got 4 children. They're all grown up. They don't live at home. They're independent, theoretically. They've paid off their family homes, and they're thinking about downsizing the house and moving into a 2-bedroom unit. Now, Barry's accumulated about 250 in super. Debbie's about 25,000. Barry's salary at the moment is 50,000, and it's just his employer superannuation guarantee contributions going in. And Debbie's salary is around about 25,000. Again, it's just the employer contributions going in. Now, in this scenario, though, is that they both want to retire within the next 5 years, and they're just a little bit unsure about whether they have enough super in which to do that or not. And consequently, this is what the projection ends up looking like. So when we've got these kind of like darker blue bars over here on the left, that's their expenses and the income tax that Barry and Debbie are paying. And in the green bar is actually when they do retire. So for that first year, they're retired before they're eligible for the age pension. So their income is going to all be coming from their superannuation. And that's what the green bar is representing. The next year, they actually become eligible for the age pension. Because of the year that they were born, they're actually eligible for the age pension at 66.5. So they're drawing still down against their super, but the age pension, this little turquoise green colour underneath, is actually indicating the age pension kicking in. And of course, as they then get to age 67, when they've got a full financial year of being reliant on the age pension, that is where most of their income's coming from. And their superannuation is then just simply topping that up for them for the remainder of their expected life expectancy, which is up until age 92. The shaded area in the back here is their superannuation funds. And it's consequently showing that they're not going to be drawing down too much. And in actual fact, they've got funds there to really fall upon if they need to do any upgrade the car, or admittedly, when they get very much into their later years, into their passive years maybe, and due to health or medical reasons, you know, they may need some operations and they've got funds in which to do it. But you know, like all of us, in the twilight of our years, we're also looking at maybe aged care, and they've certainly got some funds there. So this is what the retirement health check does. It just gives you an indication only based on your existing superannuation structure and what you're contributing, when you want to retire, and then how does the age pension and the superannuation going to work together in that regard. So moving on. So if someone is thinking about their superannuation and think, look, I really don't feel like I've got enough, or I really want to just kick some more in just to make sure, what are some of the options they've got available to them? Why they're still working before they do retire? So Daniela, maybe if I could just start with you. Can you explain what we mean by before tax type of contributions?
Yeah, sure. So just as the name suggests, these are contributions made with before tax money. So they include your employer contribution, which currently sits at 10.5% of your salary, usually. And then there is the salary sacrifice. So that's any additional contributions that you can do from your salary. And any additional deductible contribution that a member can make during the financial year and then receive deduction at tax lodging time. All these types of contribution are taxed at 15% on the way into super, which is less than the usual income tax, of course. There are caps associated with this type of contributions. Currently, these are sitting at 27.5 per financial year. Now, from 1st of July 2018, the carry forward rule was introduced, which allows members pretty much to use their unutilized caps from up to 5 previous financial years and bring them forward to when they potentially can afford a high amount of tax deductible contribution. There is one condition that they need to satisfy in order to be eligible for this carry forward rule, and that is the total super balance at the end of 30th of June of the previous financial year needs to be of $500,000 or less. And overall, before tax contribution is a very effective way to build your superannuation at the same time while reducing the tax that you pay on your income.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. And Jason, I mean, one of the questions we got asked tonight was, can I contribute a lump sum to my super after I retire? And consequently, that kind of leans towards what we're calling this after-tax contribution. So can you explain a little bit more about these types of contributions?
Yeah, sure. So just first on touching the eligibility, whether you're working or not, as long as you're under the age of 75, you can make after-tax contributions to super. Okay, so hopefully that answers that question. The government did change the rules as they tend to recently to allow for that. You can see here in the graphic where Daniela mentioned $27,500 in the before tax contributions. The after tax contributions are at a much higher cap or rate, what you can put in. It's $110,000 per financial year. So certainly if you've got a significant amount of money, that's where you'd be looking at making this contribution. Now, with the after-tax contributions, it tends to be money that we've already paid tax on, so hence the after-tax. Could be money that you've saved from your wage over the years. You might have sold a property. You might have received an inheritance or something like that. But the government doesn't double tax you on this and allows you to put this money into your super account tax-free. So there's no tax or entry taxes on the way into super. Now, if you are fortunate enough to have more than $110,000 that you want to put in, you can see in the second dot point there, you can use what's called the bring forward rule. So what's that saying is that I've got $110,000 this year, next year, and the year after. Okay, but what I want to do is bring them together and get the 3 years worth of contributions as a one-off shot. So you can do that and put in up to $330,000. It will limit what you can put in future years, but you can get a big lump sum in there as a one-off whack. The last dot point is around the government co-contribution. So if you're a lower income earner, so sort of earning in the lower 40s or even 50,000, you may be eligible for the government co-contribution. And what that is, it's the government saying, because you're a lower income earner, if you put some money in as an after-tax contribution, we'll match that up to a maximum rate of $500. So it'll depend on your income and how much you contribute. You know, you can get a little bang for your buck there. And always say to my members, any free money from the government is always good. So if we can get that, why not?
All right, so thank you very much. So there's two types of contributions, and there's limits on it. So one of the questions, and I'll come back to you, Jason, that's come up is going back to that account-based pension, can you put funds back into that type of super account?
So you can't put money back into the account-based pension. At that point where you've moved in, it's closed off from new contributions. It's just the government rules around it. But what you can do, depending on your age, is transfer it back to the super account, as I mentioned, and make a contribution into your super account as well. So you can't directly put it into the account-based pension. Unfortunately, this muddies up the waters a little bit, but we can potentially, depending on your situation, put it back into a new super account.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that's the types of contributions that people got, and it could be that they're still working, to Daniela's point, and they got some surplus cash, or they got the ability to inject some additional contributions through salary sacrifice and other means into their super, or they've got significant funds, like you mentioned, Jason, from an inheritance of some of that nature, and consequently they could put in quite a large amount of money. But there's also another one called the downsizer contribution, and maybe if I could ask you, Jason, just to explain that one as well. And then, Danielle, I'm going to come back to you because someone's got a question around this and going back to the asset test and so forth. But Jason, just to start off with, can you just give us an overview of what is a downsizing contribution?
Yeah, so the government introduced a few years ago just around, people having the larger family homes that they're looking to move out of and sort of encourage them to downsize to free up some of these larger family homes. So it enables older Australians, says here over age 65, the government's just changing those rules as well. So we'll make sure you double check around that. But if you do sell your family home that you've owned for more than 10 years, you can put some of the proceeds of that into your super. It goes in tax-free and it falls outside of those caps that we mentioned on the previous slide. So it doesn't matter if you're working, doesn't matter how old you are, as long as you're over the required age. And you can contribute up to $300,000 each. So if you're a single person, $300,000 for you. And if you're a couple, $600,000 for you both. The key, the fourth dot point there can be some potential impact on your Centrelink entitlement. So as Daniela rightly pointed out earlier, your home, if you own it, is an exempt asset from Centrelink. So all of a sudden, if you've sold that home, downsized and freed up $600,000, Centrelink's going to get their eyes on that $600,000 and potentially reduce or cut altogether your Centrelink benefits. So that's something you definitely need to consider if you're thinking of doing a downsizer contribution.
No, very good point. Thank you for that. And it's something that some people do actually miss. And just to reconfirm, one of the members did ask about what percentage of tax is applied to money invested in super from the sale of one's private residence. And as you highlighted before, the contribution goes in tax-free and consequently the funds come out tax-free. So there is no tax applied in those situations in that regards. So Daniela, coming back to the question that and the asset test is that the members asked, can you draw down your super just before the age pension to upgrade your home in order to get more age pension?
I guess it's on the other side of downsizing. The upsizing is a strategy to reduce the accessible assets. So as I mentioned before, the family home or the principal place of residence is not considered an asset for Centrelink purposes. So theoretically, yes, if you do need to do a renovation or update the house in any way, by reducing or by moving those assets from superannuation into paying for those expenses would reduce your accessible assets under the asset test for Centrelink purposes.
Absolutely. And, so yes, that is a way to do it, for the very reason that you said that the family home is exempt as an asset. But, you also got a question about how much do you want to invest into the house and upgrade it as opposed to the lifestyle that you want, because the age pension is only going to give you so much. And consequently, you're going to need funds if you want to enjoy a higher income in that respect as well. And Jason, another question came in, coming back to you about the non-concessional contribution. Can someone contribute a non-concessional contribution to their partner's super?
Yeah, sure. So you can do it if it is on your behalf. It is what we call a spouse contribution technically, and that does fall under the non-concessional $110,000. So that's something that you can do. Obviously, you have to check their age, meeting the age limits, all that sort of thing, and their other contributions that they're making as well. But long and the short of it is that yes, you can.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so as we kind of heading into the home stretch now, what we've done is we've got people thinking about what kind of lifestyle it is that they want to enjoy in their retirement. Consequently, what should they be thinking about in terms of income? Is the age pension going to play a role for them or not? And whether it is or not, how do they use their superannuation? And if they're wanting to boost their superannuation before they retire or after they retire, there are ways that they can do that with these after and before and downsize the contribution. So coming back to the case study that we were sharing with you before, so just to recap, we've got a couple up in Sydney that decided to retire, or they kind of made the decision on at this moment in time is they're moving down to Melbourne to be closer to their son and his family. So, they probably had a feel that they're going to get some kind of age pension, but they weren't quite sure exactly how much, and they certainly didn't know what they should be doing with their superannuation. So consequently, what we started off with the conversation was very much like the presentation here tonight. Well, what is it that you want to do? Are there any significant expenses? And one of them popped up. They like to get this. His wife was originally from England. She liked to go back to England and see her family just one more time in their retirement years. And this was before COVID. In that regard. So, again, because they were family orientated, it's about being closer to the son. And we got them to do a budget. It certainly came around that modest lifestyle area around that. And they were retiring during the financial year. So what we actually got them to do was actually put $1,000 each into their superannuation. And consequently, because of the salaries they earned up into their retirement date, they were actually eligible for the full government co-contribution. And also we got them to put some extra funds in as a personal tax deductible contribution. So that's before tax approach. And that basically generated an entire tax refund of the tax that they paid on their wages up until their retirement date. And then what we decided to do was actually use the husband's super to derive the income. To start off with, they were eligible for the age pension, so they were just using his to top it up. And we left her super in that accumulation phase. There was no reason to move it into the pension. They didn't need to draw down against it. They simply were going to concentrate on the husband's to start with. And when that money had run out, that's when they would then move the wife's super from that accumulation phase into the pension phase and start drawing down against against her super to derive that income that they were needing to. So consequently, they were set up, they knew exactly what they were doing, they had the peace of mind, they could go off and enjoy their retirement years. And their new issue, and we created a new one for them, was they weren't spending enough. So like you saw in that illustration before, they were going to have a lot of money potentially that was set behind them as they went through their retirement years. And they were going to have to give some consideration too, as in, do they want to draw down against it? Do they want to spend a little bit more during their retirement years while they could? Or were they going to park it and make it available more for their aged care years or so? And the other issue that we're going to create for their son is that he's going to inherit the property. So they certainly had enough super, and it's like the old adage, we just want to have enough super and we're going to spend it for our years. Their kids can inherit the house in that scenario. So hopefully, we've answered a number of questions that may have been on your mind tonight. If there's any questions that you do have about this presentation and you want to ask anything more, we do have the contact centre that you can phone. They can only give you general advice, so they can just explain the strategies and the concepts. They can't tell you what to do, like some of the questions were here tonight. And we've also got local coordinators as well that can assist you in the same area. They can meet you on a more face-to-face basis. But if you want to find out, like we go back to how much should I contribute into my super? How should I invest my super moving forward? Should I start a pension account? Do I have enough to retire on? That is where the financial advice team comes into play, because underneath the rules and the regulations, it's deemed to be personal advice. And to answer those questions, you've got to, unfortunately, come to the financial advice team. The thing to keep in mind is that where the advice is all around your first super account, there is no additional fee for that advice. It's part of your membership cost. It's only where the advice moves beyond your first super account, that's where a fee comes into play. And if you're moving in that direction, we will certainly draw it to your attention so you can make a decision whether you still want to go down that path or not in that respect. So we've got a couple of more questions just to finish off. We've just got a little bit more time left. One of the questions here tonight was, well, what kind of assistance do First Super offer? Like I just explained, there's the contact centers, there's the coordinators, there's the financial advice team. On our website, we will have a recording of this seminar and our earlier seminar from a couple of weeks ago on how to boost your super. That's available for members to watch in their own time. And also there's short videos of what we call First Talk, which go into these concepts again and explain them in a little bit more detail. And they cover different types of subjects. They normally go for about 3 to 7 minutes, so they're not very long. They can be quite good for some members that are just looking for a quick answer in that respect. And also there's our website. There's plenty of information on our website about these concepts as well. And we've got 2 more questions that we can try and sneak in. One more question. I did the 330,000 contribution, then withdrew 80,000 to do some renovations in a holiday. Can I now replace that 80,000 from an inheritance? Maybe Jason, if I throw that question back to you.
Yeah, so no, unfortunately, if you withdraw it, it doesn't affect what your contribution was. Your contribution was what your contribution was, and so that's exhausted your cap. So what you have to effectively do is wait. So wait until that 3-year period does expire, and then your cap resets, and you can consider putting in more money at that.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so that's hopefully, like I said before, we've answered a number of maybe burning questions on your mind, or maybe given you some more food for thought in considering you're planning your retirement in the next 12 months. There will be a survey that comes out after this webinar. We really appreciate your time. If you could give us some feedback, we're always open to that feedback to make sure that we're answering the members' questions and how can we improve it. There's also an option there that if you're wanting to speak to someone within the financial advice team, then you can make a request and we will get in contact you and as we said, quite close to Easter, we will try and contact you over the month of April to organise an appointment. And that appointment can be by telephone, video conference, or face-to-face. It just depends upon where you're located and how easily it is that we can connect up to each other in that respect. So for all of us, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and please enjoy the rest of your week. Bye-bye.